Three, two, one. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in our webinar, Brazil Investors and Connectors. This is our second webinar about Brazil, and you have to know that this month in Canada, Brazil is in the spotlight. So as with the other countries, we have special webinars for you so you can understand a little bit better how is the startup ecosystem in Brazil and how you can expand business to Brazil and understand better the ecosystem in general terms. So we have really nice guests today. They are all joining us today, and Rafael in Rio, our business associate, is moderating this webinar right now. So I'm going to pass the word to him. But before that, just remember that if you have any questions, you can contact us at latamstartups.biz, or you can just tweet through hashtag LatamStartups, and we are going to answer your questions as soon as we get the tweet or the question through our email. So thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to pass the word to Rafael in Rio.
Thank you so much, Miriam. Thank you all for participating. And big thank you to the speakers, definitely, for taking the time to join us. We're all very lucky to have this kind of group of speakers and specialists that joining us. I wanted to give a quick background on who they are, so you understand a little bit of where they're coming from, their experiences. I just want to read their short bios, and then we can start some questions we had passed on. For them to follow up. Milena Nope, she's actually a Brazilian-Canadian with over 15 years of experience in global companies. She's very active in both tech communities and in helping fomenting the relations between the two countries. She's involved in a series of initiatives that are making possible to the Brazilian and Canadian tech ecosystem to come closer. She's currently in Brazil and is part of the Brazilian-Canadian educational committee and vice president of Alumni Canada Brazil, and has a company, Dream2B, that helps Brazilian companies to internationalize to Canada. So she's very much linked to both countries already. We have Eduardo Sete, who's worked in the Brazilian innovation agency called FINEP, the innovation agency here based in Rio, for 7 years, managing a program that helps foster venture capital in Brazil and Latin America. And 2 years ago, he left FINEP and began investing his money in startups, and also to identify other companies in early stage processes and strategic planning for strategic planning and investment opportunities. We also have Dr. Youssef Youssef, who's international entrepreneur with a strategic focus, business vision, and mature professional judgment acquired during a successful career as founder and main manager of high-tech businesses in Canada, and also currently he has executive experience including top management responsibilities, market and product analysis, market strategy, international business administration operations, and he is currently the co-founder and president of the Federation of Canadian Brazilian Businesses. He is located in Toronto. We also have Felipe Matos. Felipe Matos was a first director of the Startup Brazil program here that launched a couple years ago. Before that, he is an entrepreneur. He's been an entrepreneur since in his teenage years with many startups. He's also the co-founder of the Startup Farm, which is, he'll explain a little bit better, and it works with the pre-acceleration process of tech companies. He is one of the lead.
Okay. I think, Rafa, you need to turn out the video because it's good enough at this point.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now, Miriam? Can you hear me better, Miriam?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, so just to go back, we're going to start with some questions. We have a mix, so these speakers represent investors and people who work with investments of startups and the tech world here in Brazil, and key people that understand the Canadian and Brazilian markets well. So we hope that this session can give a lot of general and specific as well information that you might need. So perhaps we can start with some of the questions first. A very general question. And we can go through all the speakers, and perhaps some of them will be more able to who have more experience in this area, and others can focus on the other questions. What are the biggest challenges facing the Brazilian investment startup scene, and what do you think needs to be done to overcome these challenges? Perhaps we can start with Eduardo, Eduardo and Felipe to begin, because of their work already in the investment side as well. Eduardo, perhaps you can give some your insights on this first question of the challenges.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. I think there aren't really big challenges for investors here in Brazil. I think the biggest challenge for investors is to really dig in and find good entrepreneurs. The biggest challenges for companies are actually to be able to raise money. I think that the parameters that the local investors seek in startups in Brazil is not really conducive for unicorn development. I think that's pretty much the biggest challenges that we have right now. I know there's a lot of work, there's a lot of new regulation coming out from CVM that will allow for equity crowdfunding and smaller venture capital funds. So I think for the investors as a general, we're pretty set.
No, that's very clear. Felipe, would you have anything to add from your own experience in the investment activities here in Brazil?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, actually there are too many challenges in different aspects. One point, and regulations is really an issue not only in the crowdfunding space, as Youssef mentioned, also.
Sorry, one second, Felipe. Eduardo, could you please mute your microphone, because there is a hard noise behind. Thank you. Felipe, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Do you hear me right?
Yes, I am.
Good. Well, so I was talking about the regulations, not only in the crowdfunding space, but also on fund management and fundraising. You cannot have, in a cost-effective way, funds that manage very early stage startups due to the costs and the way the regulation works right now. And also more broadly, if you look at the regulations and how you incorporate a company, your liabilities as an investor, if you're a partner of a limited company, you have some liabilities in terms of capital protection. And there are also some, I would say, a lack of incentives if you compare what you have in many other countries for angel investors or even venture capital in terms of taxation. Brazil currently doesn't have any kind of incentives to this type of investor, which in a sense blocks, or at least don't incentivize this type of investors.
Great inputs, Felipe. Thank you so much. Perhaps Youssef, would you have some other insights that you want to share to this specific question as well?
Yeah, I would be pleased to. So when we look into a determinant for entrepreneurship in any country, we analyze basically as an alternative for the strategy some of the options. The regulation, as mentioned by Felipe, infrastructure, the market situation, access to capital, as mentioned by Eduardo, this innovation ecosystem, the human capital, and the culture of innovation. So when you look into these variables that we have and the current situation in Brazil, unfortunately, in almost all of these items that I mentioned, exception given for culture of entrepreneurship, are lagging behind. And this is one of the problems that I can see in terms of progressing in investment and advancing this initiative toward having more investment for the Brazilian entrepreneur. I would like to cheer and commend the efforts that all Brazilians are doing right now, given the situation. Eduardo, Felipe, and Rafael, and Regina, and everybody else, because it's not easy. It's not easy. We have, in terms of regulation, the time for processing, the cost of the taxes, the tax complexity in Brazil, which is not understood, nobody can understand really, actually, rather than Brazilian. In terms of infrastructure, it is really shameful and regretful that we look into, for example, the internet and many other determinants for the technological determinants that are not still at the same level with other developing countries. So, in all senses and walks of issues that we have visited, when it comes to these issues as determinant, I can see that Brazil is still far behind.
Great, thank you also for these perspectives. Regina, would you feel you could have some additional points to add, and then we can go on to the next question.
I think the gentleman's covered the question very well. I guess we can just move on to the next one.
Well, I guess perhaps we can start with you then, Regina. Perhaps talking about the positive things. What are some of the opportunities that you think exist for investors in the Brazilian tech scene, and what kind of advice would you give to them with the opportunities that are in Brazil currently?
It's quite interesting because actually that's what I was thinking. That how I would like to approach that. So we have a a very well-known investor in our team, in Dream2B's team. Lots of people in Brazil, of course, know him, Marco Poli, and we were just talking about that actually yesterday. That's the positive side it is that there is not much competition. I would say, like there's no investors competition because there's not that many yet. So I see that as very positive. Of course, as our colleagues there mentioned, if the investor is interested in Brazil and get to know very well how things work, Brazil, as we know, is very complicated. They always say Brazil is not for beginners. If they pass through that stage and do their homework very well, for sure there are lots of opportunities because, the crisis that we are living, we don't see that crisis in the tech sector, especially the startup. Actually, it's the opposite. As more people now are becoming entrepreneurs and and start to think out of the box. So we do have lots of opportunities, in my view, and I think that international investors, again, once they know how to figure out how to do business in Brazil, there is lots and lots of opportunities. And the good thing is because we're still quite young, there's not much, as I said, that much competitive like the other countries.
That's great. It's encouraging to hear as well. So I think that it's good. It's good to know that, like you mentioned as well, there's less competition in some of these specific areas. So that's something that people need to take into account after persisting, after going through the challenges and obstacles that do exist, but that it's worth outside companies or investors.
Was it for me because it was like the voice was lagging a bit? I guess.
Sorry.
Rafael.
Sorry. It was for Eduardo. Eduardo, what advice would you give to investors about opportunities that do exist? Eduardo, please.
I think that the biggest challenge here for investors, be them local or foreign investors, is to actually find good, experienced entrepreneurs. Not experienced as in having had entrepreneurial experience before, but having professional, relevant experience. At the same time, I think that Brazil presents a very good landscape for investing in startups. We actually invest in companies that they bring a business model that's already been proven and worked in other countries and implement them here. Most of the sectors here in Brazil lag somewhat of an update on how they do business through technology. So there's a lot of room for that here. Hello, Rafael?
Yes, perfect. No, thank you, Eduardo. I think we definitely want Dr. Youssef and Felipe to answer this question too. Felipe, what advice would you give in terms of opportunities in Brazil?
Well, I think there are several opportunities for foreign investors to invest in Brazil. The country itself, well, our economy has changed a little bit over the past few years. So I would say the opportunities have migrated from B2C, that's where most of the money was going to companies that were trying to sell goods for the rising middle class that was growing in Brazil at the time. And right now, I would say that most of the investment deals are going to B2B companies. There are using technology to increase efficiency for different sectors. So companies are now looking to differentiate and to innovate and to cut costs and to get more efficient. And I think that the inefficiency that we have here in Brazil in several sectors is actually a great opportunity to use technology to increase the level of efficiency, of management, of several players. So I've seen lots of business-to-business deals, lots of new companies and startups that are working with industries, and by industries I mean manufacturing industries. So doing maintenance, doing logistics management. So there are several business-to-business opportunities in sectors that used to be more agnostic, more lethargic in technology adoption, and they are now looking for ways to increase their profitability by using technology. One sector that I would point out as well is the agri-tech. I think over the past 2 years we've seen a big number of agri-tech startups being invested and entering the market. And as you know, Brazil is one of the 5 largest agri-tech producers in the world. We have a huge plantations on soy and several other beans. And this area, they have developed a lot in terms of mechanization, but not that much when it goes to information technology, internet. So there are several new startups that are now trying to increase efficiency on those sectors. And I would add to that as well that the exchange rate has helped a lot of foreign investors lately. You know, dollar is way more valuable than it used to be when converted to Brazilian reais, and that makes the amount of the power of foreign investors even bigger.
Fantastic. Just to highlight again, increasing productivity and efficiency through technology. That's an opportunity alone in many sectors it can cover. So thank you for that.
With Youssef, thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you can answer the same question, thank you.
Yeah, because Miriam, it was lagging for me too. So okay. Well, Felipe and the other guests have covered fairly all issues that but what I would like to add is a bit of doses of optimism regarding Brazil. I know that the situation right now is not the best for investment, although it has been pinpointed by Felipe that the rate between the American dollar and real would be very helpful for foreign investors. What I would like to highlight is the Brazilian entrepreneurial culture. It's a land for entrepreneurs, some of them driven by opportunity, like the tech sectors. Some of them are driven by necessity, like many other entrepreneurial initiatives. But Brazil still is a land of great land for opportunities, and let's take it from Latin American perspective, not only from as a market, as a unique market, which is Brazil with 300 million, consumers and potential consumers. So I can say that the moment is not the best, but there's a huge opportunity right now to go to Brazil. There are barriers naturally, and that's why talking to people like Felipe, like us here, and Miriam can help all investors to overcome these difficulties and reach out to the Brazilian market.
Great, no, great insights. And actually, that leads to the next question. We're talking about, okay, our opportunities do exist, and there are some challenges, but reach out to and connect with the growing startup or tech sector for international partners in Brazil. Perhaps we can start with Regina again, please.
I think Regina just disconnected.
Regina.
She disconnected, yeah. So the question for everybody is, what's the best way to reach out to and connect with the growing startup and tech sectors in Brazil? So why we don't start with Felipe, and then we go to Eduardo, and then Yusef, okay?
Okay. I'm not sure if I got the question right, but when it comes to partnerships, so what's the best way to make partnerships in order to explore the investment opportunities in Brazil? Was that?
Yeah, that's correct. How startups can actually get, or investors can actually get in contact with the startup ecosystem in Brazil?
Okay. Well, the Brazilian ecosystem, and I would say that nowadays you do have a strong ecosystem. A lot still to go, but Brazil has a dozen of active VC firms, dozens of thousands of venture investors. We have 50 accelerators, 300 incubators. There are some mega hubs and huge co-working spaces for startups, and not only in São Paulo, but in some other cities as well. So the best way obviously would be to look for one of the communities that has more certainty with the market that you're targeting, and talk to the main leaders of that community. Right now in Brazil, I think we have at least 50 to 100 events every week concerning startups and startup investment and startup communities, mostly in São Paulo, but we do also have Belo Horizonte, Recife, Rio, Florianópolis, and some other cities with pretty strong local ecosystems. And each city would have its hubs. Here in São Paulo, for instance, Google just launched a Google Campus, which is a mega hub to connect entrepreneurs and the community. And there's also another big space called Cubo that was created by Banco Itaú. It's a large bank here in Brazil. And these are, 6 to 7 floor buildings that are packed with entrepreneurs, and where most of the investors and leaders of the community would go on regular basis. So those are very good places to get connected with the ecosystem. There are a variety of events for different markets that you could search for and go in order to connect to folks specifically in that sector. I would say that, well, there's also the Brazilian Trade and Promotion Agency called Apex Brazil, and they're also responsible for investment attraction. They have offices all over the world. They don't have one in Canada, but they do in San Francisco and Miami. These are and New York. These are the three ones they have in North America, which you could look for in order to check for opportunities for investment and how to get to Brazil as well. And if you're a startup or even an investor, I would say that the startup accelerators such as Startup Farm, venture capital firms, angel associations are also good spots for you to look for opportunities.
Great, thank you, Felipe. Eduardo, thank you so much, Felipe. As being an investor, Eduardo, yourself, how would you receive, or how have you received contact from foreign investors or other companies interested in soft landing investment opportunities in Brazil? Perhaps your advice.
I'm sorry, Rafael, I couldn't get your question.
I'm sorry. So, as an investor yourself, working with the tech sector, so how would you recommend other investors to reach out to investment groups here in Brazil specifically?
I think that Felipe covered pretty much everything. I think the best way would go, if you want to reach out to other investors like yourselves, go to ABVCAP, which is the Brazilian Venture Capital Association. They're very friendly, and they can put you in contact with other investors in your that invest in the same profile of companies that foreign investors are looking for. I think that's pretty much it. Or just honestly, just send an email. Most of the investors here in Brazil are very friendly to outside investors.
Great. No, that's good to know. Go ahead.
Brazilian investors, they love to co-invest. A good way would be to find a local investor that you trust, that's related to the sectors that you're interested at, and co-invest. That's a good approach as well.
Fantastic. Regina, I think we lost you for a little bit, but I think you're back here, and just the question was, what's the best way to reach out to and connect with the growing startup and tech sectors here in Brazil?
Yes, sorry, I got disconnected for a bit. You know, I heard a little bit. Who was speaking last? Sorry, I couldn't recognize who was speaking last.
Felipe and okay. Eduardo.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I do agree that, you know, ideally you try to definitely connect with, you know, a local company here that's related to the, you know, to the kind of business you're doing. You know, as in Canada, we also have like, you know, each accelerator has, you know, your own niche, and they are specialized on that. So ideally, you try to connect with, you know, an accelerator here, or, you know, or a company that can put you in touch with all the people, you know, that really would make a difference and introduce you to the ecosystem. That's kind of like the first step. And from there, of course, you know, the network doesn't change much from when we do business from Brazil to Canada. It's the same thing, right? Like trying to build up your network and get to know how the ecosystem really works. But mainly, I give the same suggestion, that is go through, you know, like trying to find the niche of, you know, if it's agrotech, you know, trying to see who is best in that area down here in Brazil, and try to connect with them and start to build from there.
Fantastic, thank you. Dr. Youssef is actually in Toronto, so what's your advice when you speak with companies interested in Canada, interested coming to Brazil, but as based in Toronto, from that?
Yeah.
From that perspective, sorry.
From our perspective here, the Federation of Canadian and Brazilian Businesses as well, like, it's an initiative. It's a not-for-profit organization headquartered at Humber College, with all the support given by this academic structure and certainly the government, to support entrepreneurs to go to Brazil, and that's what we found that Canadian might be interested in. The major difficulty that they are finding in moving to Brazil is understanding Brazil. It's really very tricky for them. The second factor that I would mention is the easiness to go to the United States. So there's a huge barrier. Felipe mentioned once in one of his conferences that I was present. The major barrier for Brazil, for Canadian maybe to go to Brazil is the wall called United States of America, which is easier. Now, understanding Brazil, it's a bit tricky, and that's why we advise every company that is coming here, asking us, a small business and mid-sized business, this is our specialty here at the Federation, we advise them to first think really what they are looking for, as mentioned by Regina. What is the sector that they are willing to invest in? Or they are, what kind of connection do they want with Brazil? And the second step is, please, let's go to Brazil, because there are a lot of psychological barriers regarding what's coming, through the news about Brazil and the culture, Brazilian culture of business, and many different things. So the first advice is, okay, what do you want to do? We have the bridge, we have the partners, we have the accelerators, and we have a couple of partnership in Brazil with the international incubators for soft landing purposes. So let's go to Brazil first to give you an idea and glance about what you can be able to do there. And then the other subject that we were covered by fairly by Eduardo and by Regina and by Felipe. So, but going to Brazil is important to me, and understanding the culture.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Very, very good insights. I just want to go back again. If there's anything else you guys can add about, any of you would suggest about the angel investment opportunities in Brazil, and what other sources of funding are available for startups in Brazil. As an international investor, would it be easier? And specifically, I don't know if that's perhaps a repeated question, or if there's anything you can add to specifically the angel investment sector here in Brazil. Perhaps starting with Eduardo, as a senior angel investor here, Eduardo.
Yes, I think that you can find a lot of either innovative companies for to invest in as an angel investor for startups, or you can also find a lot of companies that have business models that plainly replicate something that has happened in other countries and has been proven. If you want to go a little bit up the ladder to early stage companies, I think I've seen a lot of family companies in Brazil that are very, very good companies. They lack the funding to really grow. Most of them have some kind of debt with banks, which are very expensive because they have a hard time finding other sources of funding. I think in general that would be my 2 cents on this.
Perfect, thank you. Felipe, anything you can add in terms of angel investment in the scene here in Brazil, and how that could be related to international foreign interests coming into the angel investment as well?
Sure. Well, the angel investor community in Brazil is still very small, even though it's growing. So we have, according to the Brazilian Angels Association, between 4,000 and 6,000 angel investors in Brazil, and a good part of those investors are not active. So most of the angels here, they are organized in associations. So a good way to start would be to look for those associations. The main one is Anjos do Brasil, and they also have regional chapters. So they welcome investors and help you to connect with opportunities locally. And I would also look for the top accelerators in the country because they are probably one of the main deal source providers, and they provide a first good screening of opportunities and a preparation of them. So they're good ways to start. Once again, in terms of incentives, as I was mentioned, we still don't have any incentives neither for local or foreign angel investors. There was one initiative by FINEP that was announced last year to start a fund that would match funds with angel investors, but it has not been released yet. And since the government has changed, we're not sure if this initiative will ever be on course anymore.
Thank you so much, Felipe. I would like to, finalize with some questions here for our guest, and I'd like to explore one part that is well known here in Canada, is that many companies are so frustrated with the process to actually enter to Brazil and to do business in Brazil. So from your perspective, I'm going to start with Dr. Youssef and with Regina after. I would like to know what is the process to actually a company need to pass through to enter to Brazil? Like how long they have to invest in time and travels to actually get the first customer? And second is how they actually close a deal with Brazilians. What is the main problem for Canadian companies to actually go there and close deals with Brazilians?
So, well, the Canadian, you know very well, Miriam, they are very conservative businessmen and women. So in terms of doing business with Brazil, the first barrier is the culture. The bridges are there. I mean, Regina is doing an amazing job, and the Federation is here, and you are, LATAM too, you are doing your best to make the connections. Now, we envision 2 or 3 ways to connect these companies to the Brazilian market. The first one is, I would say, for entrepreneurs, there's no barriers. Canadians are not the huge risk takers, and that's why they sometimes try to avoid Brazil. But for those who are really entrepreneurs, we have a couple of Canadian companies that are doing very well in Brazil and doing good businesses there. So the first is to have a clear idea of what business model they would like to move forward with. The first one I would like to mention is, would you like to do the FDI, foreign direct investment in Brazil? Would you like to have your subsidiary set up in Brazil or not? The second is, would you like to partner with a Brazilian company? And the third, would you like to have a distributor from Brazil? So these are 3 major ways that you can pick up in order for you to continue your way of invest or moving with your company to Brazil. So in this regard, what we see and envision is the major difficulty is the tax structure. It is very difficult. Funding is not a problem for Canadian companies because the government here has a very fairly good structure for funding. You know, EDC, Miriam, is very good. So all operation can be funded by the Canadian government or helped by to be funded by Canadian banks. The issue is, how do we bridge both markets? And this is the major difficulty. So having accelerators there in Brazil helps a lot. We have partnership initiatives like Regina's initiative helps a lot, and but the barriers are cultural barriers. That's mainly what I see here. They have lack of understanding of the Brazilian culture. They do not understand Latin America in general. They're afraid of moving there. They don't have money, although Canadian government has a lot of initiatives here that can be funding initiatives for entrepreneurs to move forward. You have the trade commissioners in Brazil in 4 Brazilian cities. The Canadian embassy is very active, but you know, to our expectations, I would say, what we have mostly is people are curious about Brazil, but not seriously looking forward to do business with Brazil so far.
Thank you so much for that, Joseph. So that's really good to know that you have to put some efforts, and actually look for the right, the right approach to Brazil. It's not that you are just going there to explore the business. You need to go with a certain plan and something in your desk that you're going to say, okay, this is the next step for me, and this is what I'm going to get, and this is my goal. So it's not just the thing to explore the market. So Regina, in terms of your experience to actually dealing with Canadian and other international companies, how long it takes for an international company to actually get a first client?
I wish I could answer that question, but there's no, there's I don't think no one can actually answer that, because all depends. What we normally say is like for any international business takes at least 6 months for you to start to really understand how the market works. But again, even then, we can really measure that because depends what kind of company, depends if they already have, if their products or business is already global, so that would make it a little bit easier to just get into Brazil, or if it is the first time that they are going to international markets. It all depends. But again, there's no magic, number there. It's the same as when we do business from Brazil to Canada. We normally say you need to really take the time. As I said, to first really understand the markets. You really need to start to build a relationship. It's not just, oh, I want to go there, I want to try to, okay, just, I start to sell. That doesn't happen. Just if you, of course, if you have, a product that is just totally ready for the market and, you're just ready to go, but normally takes time. Again, I would say at least 6 months to a year at least. Most people think about international business is just to translate your website, or I have a friend down there, I know someone there in Brazil that they're gonna help me to to get into the market. But takes a lot of effort, as as said before, and do the right thing and really persist, especially in Brazil, that we are one of the main things, like we like to know the people we do business. We like to build a relationship, so that takes time. You need to call. It's so different when you call to the business in Canada, you already can start to talk about business right away. And when you call Brazil, for example, you need to start to ask how is the person's family, how was soccer, how was the weekend, that sort of thing. You can pretty much start the business without feel close to the person you're doing business. That's that goes into the cultural part of how Brazilians do business. I would say, but mainly the other facts, they are, of course, Brazil is a little bit more challenged and trickier because of the size and all the specifications, but mainly it is like for any other market, it takes time for you to to do business in another country and understands how things really work. With in the tech world now, with startups, it's a little bit easier than in the offline market, but it's still very challenging. So I'm afraid that I can't really be accurate and say how long does it take.
Perfect. No, that's okay. And I'm sorry for the audience if they hear some of kind of noise behind. Is because Regina has so nice to join us while she's at the airport. So that's
Sorry about that.
Yeah, don't worry. So that's why the noise behind. So sorry about that. But okay, that's understanding. So there is no specific time for companies to actually look at Brazil, but it's pretty much understanding here that if you are actually going to Brazil and do business, you have to take in consideration that it's going to take a long time and to build a relationship with locals to actually get a deal after. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen after a couple of visits. It's going to happen after a few visits, and you actually build this relationship with your potential client or your potential partner. So it's just to put in some perspective, you know, what is the challenge of Brazil is not actually the market itself, you know, is not because the politics, and of course all that involves in all this, but you know, you have to consider to spend enough time there and to actually meet your customers. So finalizing all this today, we are going to go to some questions that we already received from the audience. And the first question is, of course, regarding the political situation in Brazil and how that is affecting the startups in Brazil. So I don't know who would like to start with that question, who would like to answer that question. How is the political situation affecting startups in Brazil?
Well, I can start this conversation, and then we'll be very brief. Well, political situation is part of what we call the regulation environment, and it is determined for everything else. But it would be a great opportunity because of what's going on. So this is a kind of ambiguous approach, but I would say I'm not afraid of having any problem in the future for entrepreneurs who intend to go to Brazil and to invest there. It's a great opportunity for now. It's cheaper, as mentioned by some of the guests here. The rate to dollar is very attractive, and I would advise some of those who are endeavoring going to Brazil just to check it out.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Joseph. Any other answer around?
Well, I would add to that mostly I would say that what compromised us startups the most in here is more the economy situation rather than the political situation itself. Of course, there are issues, regulatory issues that we want to push forward, and that depends on politics. But I would say that given the regulation environment that we have, what is affecting startups the most would be the economic aspects of the political crisis that we had. So the country is facing a rise in unemployment, the interest rates, they are way too high, and that obviously would make less investment available for those startups. So these are probably the main concerns. But on the other hand, I can say that I've never seen the startup scene in Brazil growing as much as it is right now. And well, it may sound a little cliche, but every crisis also shows lots of opportunities. It's a time where money change hands. Companies are more open to experiment and to try out new things. They have to move in order to face the crisis. As I've mentioned, most of the opportunities are now more going towards B2B than B2C, so working to increase efficiency with the companies. And even though the country's GDP itself is shrinking, the tech sector is still growing and is growing a lot. I think that the fact that we have developing economy, most of the opportunities that some other countries don't have anymore, we still do. We have space to grow the e-commerce, the digital economy. Most of our both commerce transactions, payments, they are still offline. So there's a lot of room to grow and to increase with technology, and that is a momentum of opportunity for sure. Prices are good. The exchange rate is helping. So if you have an opportunistic view and taking the politics aside, it's a great timing to invest in Brazil.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Felipe. So let's move to the second question if somebody doesn't have any other thing to add. The question here about is how do I expand in Brazil? Which city is better, Sao Paulo or Rio? And this is one of the questions I think we had before, because Brazil is really big. Like it's not just about just Rio and Brazil and Sao Paulo. So what is your best advice on that part?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm actually now, I'm living between São Paulo, Florianópolis, and Canada. So in Florianópolis, Santa Catarina, actually, Santa Catarina is the state, is one area that is really booming. The tech sector there is quite, quite surprising for people that are just used to hear about São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. So definitely there is, Santa Catarina. There is, of course, Minas Gerais. It's another very important hub. When we talk about São Paulo, we also have like some towns, around São Paulo, like Campinas. So there is, it's quite exciting to see what's happening especially in the startup ecosystem in Brazil. There is a lot more to explore than São Paulo and Rio for sure. I would definitely look into these other places as well. Depends what kind of of startup you're doing. What kind of business you're doing.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Regina. And we have two more questions, and we are going to leave the other questions for to answer through email. Thank you so much for all of them to actually join us today. So we are going to answer these other two questions that actually are not totally related with Brazil and the tech ecosystem, but one of them is what is about cybersecurity in some areas in Canada? This person in particular is she's located in Brazil, and she would like to know which one is the best city, if I understood well, which one is the best city to develop something in cybersecurity in Canada. And she wants to the answer in Portuguese. So who can help me there? Because I don't speak Portuguese, so sorry.
I certainly can do it, if you wish.
Sure.
Well, now it's going to be in Portuguese, right?
For that question, yeah, she is asking the answer in Portuguese.
Ok. Well, a segurança cibernética aqui no Canadá é uma das áreas muito bem desenvolvidas. E não é falar de cidades, mas tem grandes cidades que têm um grande destaque nessa área de tecnologia de informação. A área da Grande Toronto, que tem a cidade de Waterloo, tem a cidade de Hamilton e tem a Toronto. Esse triângulo é muito interessante, onde você vai encontrar muitas empresas especializadas, mas também tem o hub em Ottawa, a cidade que é capital, e tem bastante também empresas de tecnologia da informação onde estão localizadas, incluindo essa área de cybersecurity que você está perguntando. Essas são as duas áreas que eu recomendo. Se tiver interesse, você pode nos contatar. A federação ela faz essa ponte também de empresas brasileiras com canadenses. Tem dois polos aqui que a gente chama de International Soft Landing Incubators. Uma aqui em Toronto, que é a Miriam, nossa amiga, conhece muito bem. E tem uma outra em Ottawa, então a gente pode fazer essa conexão. É claro que podemos ajudar nesse sentido. Mas esses são os dois polos, basicamente. A Grande Toronto, que é o triângulo que eu mencionei, Waterloo, Toronto e Hamilton, e tem algumas coisas entre eles, e temos também o polo de Ottawa. Não tenho muito conhecimento sobre Vancouver como está, ou outras áreas do Canadá, mas basicamente é isso que eu tenho.
Thank you, Joseph. So we have another question from Marcos Ricardo, and he's asking how can I join into a Canadian startup that will develop business in Brazil? That's a tricky one. So I know who is making all these connections between Brazil and Canada has been Regina. So Regina, do you know any startup that probably would like to partner with a Brazilian startup to join actually or to do business development in Brazil?
We are working on that. There is, a few companies that start to show interest, and we are planning in doing the same program that we are doing now between Brazilian startups going to Canada. We intend to do that in the other way around. It's still in early stage, but that's we're gonna have something pretty soon. In that, and if you would like to get in touch, uh, please with Dream to Be, we would like to share some of the informations what we have been doing. I need to understand a little bit of, if you want to get involved like as a partner here, as a startup here, or work in a company. I need to understand a little bit more how this involvement would be. But all I can say now, we definitely, are looking to integrate, the ecosystem between, Canadian and Brazil and vice versa. But we are trying to create a specific program. If we, if it, I guess I can say a program to make that transition a little bit easier.
Sounds good, Regina. Thank you so much for your answer. Now, we are going to, finalize with some thoughts, final thoughts for the audience. So, we are going to start with Eduardo. Eduardo, I wanted you first to let me know, let know the audience, in one word, how do you describe the startup ecosystem in Brazil? And second, how can people contact you?
I think the in one word, the startup ecosystem in Brazil, I'd say thriving. There's a lot of opportunity. People can contact me through my email, which is esette@eximventures.com. We look at a lot of investment deals from startups to early stage companies, and we're always looking for co-investors into the deals that we do. And we have a lot of experience with outside investors also, so we'd be glad to get any email, any contact, and answer any questions.
Thank you, Eduardo. So, Felipe, in one word, how do you describe this startup ecosystem in Brazil, and how can people contact you?
I would say, well, opportunity. I would say that several opportunities here. I'm more than open to get in touch with you guys. My email is felipe.matos@startupfarm.com.br, or maybe as easy as that is my Twitter handler, @FelipeMatos, so you can get in touch with me. And by the way, for those of you who are based in Quebec, in July will be my partner and CEO of Startup Farm will be there, and will give a talk about the Brazilian startup ecosystem. So you can also get in touch about that as well.
That's awesome, Felipe. So you are coming to the festival Montreal. So that's great. I'll see you there as well. So, Regina, yeah, I'll be there for sure. Regina, for you, again, one word describing the startup ecosystem in Brazil, and please let us know how to contact you.
Yeah, I would say opportunity as well. It's definitely booming and full of opportunities. And I'd love to help the companies that would like to explore more what Brazil has to offer. Are you being Canada? I'm actually en route to Canada now. So I'll be in Toronto for a couple of days, and I'll be in Vancouver if someone is around and would like to chat. We are bringing a trade mission with Brazilian startups, to Vancouver, but we're also exploring the other provinces, and there's lots of very interesting things, about to happen. To connect even more both ecosystems. I can be contacted at regina.nop with double P, like Peter, at dream2, number 2, letter B.com.br. Regina.nop at dream2b.com.br. Sorry, yeah, that's correct.
Thank you, Regina. And don't worry, for the audience, we are going to actually pass the emails as per authorization with our speakers. So we are going to email you those emails, so don't worry. Now, for Youssef, in one word, how do you describe the startup ecosystem in Brazil, and how they can contact you?
I would describe it as promising. Don't lose this opportunity mentioned by Regina and Felipe. Brazil is very flexible and creative country. You'll find a lot of opportunities there. We are here as a Federation of Canadian Brazilian Businesses, along with our partners. Everybody's welcome. It's not for-profit organization. We just connect. We are connectors. So you can find me at president@fcvb.org. And Regina and Felipe, we are here for you anytime you wish.
Thank you so much, Youssef. So finally, just to say the last words here is that we are going to have another webinar about Brazil again. We have like 4 webinars this month. And the other webinar is about business development and how you can actually do this business development in Brazil. So please join us this week as well with some other speakers that they are going to give you some tips about how to do business in Brazil, how to contact those potential clients there. And as well, I'd like to remind you that we are having our main conference in Mexico this year. So please join us in the LATAM Startups Conference 3.0 in Mexico in October. So if you have any questions about the conference, don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you so much for your attention, and please contact us in any time if you have any other question about Brazil and the startup ecosystem. Bye now.